A company promised the world it would kill the gasoline engine. They put a date on it. They put $40 billion behind it. They told every shareholder, every government, every customer on Earth, by 2030, we go electric, and we never look back. That company was Mercedes-Benz. And now, they've quietly walked it all back. New engines, new hybrids, a wave of gas-powered launches bigger than anything in the company's 140-year history. The question isn't why Mercedes changed its mind. The question is what they know about the future of electric cars that the rest of us don't. Here's what makes this story different from just another corporate press release. Mercedes wasn't some hesitant, late-to-the-party carmaker dragging its feet on electric vehicles. They were one of the most aggressive believers in the EV revolution. They bet the company on it. Publicly, loudly, in writing. So when a business that confident, that well-funded, and that deeply invested suddenly slams the brakes and reroutes billions of dollars back toward the very technology it swore to bury, that's not a minor course correction. That's a signal. And signals like this tend to ripple through an entire industry. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what Mercedes announced, why it's rattling car buyers, investors, and rival automakers all at once, and what it might actually mean for whether you end up driving an electric car in the next 5 years. But to understand how big this reversal really is, we have to go back to the moment Mercedes made a promise it's now breaking. Rewind to 2021. Electric vehicles were the hottest story in the auto industry. Tesla stock was rocketing past every legacy automaker combined. Governments across Europe were drawing up plans to ban new gas car sales entirely. And every major manufacturer was terrified of being the next Kodak, the company that saw the future coming and just didn't move fast enough. Mercedes-Benz didn't want to be that company. So its CEO, Ola Källenius, stood in front of investors and made a promise that stunned the entire industry. Mercedes would go electric only by the end of the decade, wherever market conditions allowed it. Not when it's convenient. Not eventually. By 2030. And they backed the words with real money. Roughly $40 billion committed to the transition, new EV-only factories, new battery platforms, a complete redesign of what a Mercedes was supposed to be. The EQS. The EQE. Sleek, silent, futuristic sedans built to replace the classic S-Class the same way the iPhone replaced the flip phone. For a brief moment, it looked unstoppable. But underneath the confident headlines, something was quietly going wrong. Here's the part most people missed. While Mercedes was busy building its electric future, the actual sales numbers were telling a very different story. By 2023, fully electric vehicles made up only around 11% of everything Mercedes sold. Add in hybrids, and you still barely crack 19%. That's nowhere close to the half-hour lineup will be electrified by 2025, target the company had promised investors just 2 years earlier. And Mercedes wasn't alone in this. Renault quietly shelved the stock listing of its electric vehicle division. General Motors slashed its EV production targets. Even Porsche, a brand built on performance and precision, delayed its own electric rollout, redesigning a next-generation SUV that was supposed to be all-electric so it could keep a gas engine option alive. Something was shifting across the entire industry at the exact same time. And it all traced back to one uncomfortable truth nobody in the boardrooms wanted to say out loud first. People simply weren't buying electric cars as fast as the automakers had bet they would. Charging infrastructure was inconsistent. Battery costs weren't falling as quickly as promised. And a huge segment of buyers, especially in the luxury market Mercedes lives and dies by, just weren't ready to give up the sound, the range confidence, and the familiarity of a combustion engine. For a company that had staked its reputation and $40 billion on the opposite bet, that was a 5-alarm fire. So Mercedes did something almost no major automaker wants to do in public. They admitted they were wrong. In early 2024, Källenius stood in front of investors again. Except this time, the tone was completely different. The all-electric, by 2030 pledge? Pushed back. The new target, electrified vehicles, EVs and hybrids combined, making up to 50% of sales by 2030. That's the same 50% milestone Mercedes had originally promised for 2025. They gave themselves an extra 5 years. But the real bombshell wasn't the delay itself. It was what came next. Mercedes confirmed it would keep developing brand-new combustion engines. Not just maintaining old ones, building new ones. A next-generation 4-cylinder engine, designed to work inside fresh hybrid powertrains, engineered to be reliable enough to carry the brand well into the 2030s. Read that again. A luxury automaker that had promised the death of the gas engine was now investing in its next generation. Källenius framed it as flexibility, reacting to what he called the natural peaks and troughs of the EV transition, rather than forcing an artificial cutoff the market wasn't ready for. But flexibility is a polite word for retreat, and the retreat kept getting bigger. This is where the story stops being about one press release and starts becoming something much bigger. Because Mercedes didn't just tweak a target date. It restructured its entire product pipeline around the reversal. The company laid out plans for more than 30 new and updated vehicles rolling out through the next few years, one of the most aggressive product blitzes in its history. And when you break down what's actually inside that wave of new cars, the picture gets even more revealing. Look at the top-end luxury models, the cars that make Mercedes the most money. The majority of them are combustion-powered. Look at the mid-tier core lineup. Again, gas and hybrid outnumber pure electric. Even in the entry-level segment, Mercedes is splitting its bets evenly between gas and electric instead of going all in on EVs like it once promised. In other words, the brand that once wanted to bury the combustion engine is now using it to fund the biggest product launch wave in company history. And here's the twist that makes this even stranger. At the very same time, Mercedes is still rolling out genuinely impressive new electric technology, advanced 800-volt battery architecture, a next-generation AI-powered software platform, and an all-new electric CLA that the company calls the start of a completely new vehicle family. So which is it? Is Mercedes abandoning electric cars or doubling down on them? The uncomfortable answer is both. And that contradiction is exactly what's shaking up the entire EV market. Here's why this matters far beyond one German car company. Mercedes isn't a scrappy startup that can quietly change direction without anyone noticing. It's one of the most watched, most premium, most influential brands in the entire auto industry. When Mercedes moves, competitors watch and often follow. And they already are. Porsche walking back its EV-only SUV. Volkswagen absorbing a multi-billion-dollar hit tied to the shift. Gemeterin gave output. Every one of these decisions lands in the same short window of time, and every one of them points to the same conclusion. The car industry made a massive, coordinated bet that consumers would switch to electric faster than they actually have. And now the biggest names in the business are quietly, one by one, hedging that bet. For EV believers, this looks like a betrayal, proof that the electric revolution was more marketing than commitment. For skeptics, it looks like vindication, evidence that the technology, the infrastructure, and the price tags simply weren't ready for the timeline everyone promised. But there's a third way to read this. One that most headlines are missing entirely. The biggest reveal. Mercedes isn't retreating from electric vehicles. It's redefining what winning the EV transition actually looks like. Think about what the company is really doing here. It isn't cutting its EV investment. Its next-generation electric architecture and AI software platform are still moving forward at full speed. What it's cutting is the artificial deadline, the forced all-or-nothing switch that ignored what actual customers, actual charging networks, and actual battery costs could support in the real world. Mercedes make a huge chunk of its profit from wealthy, brand-loyal buyers who care about performance, prestige, and reliability first, and the planet second. Force those buyers into electric cars before the technology and infrastructure fully catch up, and you don't create loyal EV converts. You create angry customers who defect to a competitor still selling the combustion cars they actually want. So instead, Mercedes is running two futures in parallel. Let the combustion and hybrid lineup fund the company and keep loyal customers happy today, while the electric side keeps developing in the background until it's genuinely ready to win on its own merits, not because a government deadline forced it to. It's not a company giving up on electric vehicles. It's a company that got burned trying to force a revolution on a timeline the real world wasn't ready for, and is now quietly building a second, more patient path to the exact same destination. The question is whether their competitors and their customers will wait long enough to see if that bet pays off. So here's the uncomfortable truth this whole story leaves us with. The switch to electric cars was never just about better technology. It was a massive, expensive, industry-wide bet on how fast human behavior would change. And Mercedes just admitted, in the most public way possible, that the bet was placed too aggressively. That doesn't mean electric cars are dying. It means the timeline everyone assumed was inevitable, the one splashed across headlines for the last 5 years, was never as certain as it looked. The next time a company promises you the future is arriving on a fixed date, remember Mercedes. Remember the $40 billion. Remember the promise that became a delay, and the delay that became a whole new strategy. The future isn't canceled. It's just arriving on its own schedule, not anybody else's. If this kind of story pulled you in, you'll want to see what's happening with the other automakers making the exact same quiet reversal. Hit like, subscribe so you don't miss it, and check out the next video breaking down exactly that.